The kingdom of Varith had long feared the Demon King, but only few had ever seen him. That changed on the night when the sky turned blood red, and Prince One found himself fleeing for his life. The dense forest swallowed him as he ran, his royal robes torn by thorns, his breath coming in ragged gasps. Behind him, shadows slithered unnaturally, whispering his name. One had always been told demons were ruthless creatures of the abyss, yet nothing had prepared him for this. His heart pounded as he stumbled over roots, his mind racing for an escape. But deep down he knew the truth, there was no escaping the one who pursued him. Before he could take another step, darkness coiled around his limbs, lifting him effortlessly off the ground. A deep chuckle resonated through the air. From the shadows emerged the Demon King, his red eyes glowing like embers in the night. His long obsidian hair cascaded down his broad shoulders, and his deep red robes, lined with intricate embroidery, shimmered like molten fire. Even in the dim light, his presence was overwhelming, elegant yet terrifying, powerful yet alluring. Back in the Demon King's grand castle, one woke on a luxurious bed, his wrists bound in golden chains. The room around him was opulent, lined with silk and burning candles, a stark contrast to the terror that clutched at his chest. He sat up cautiously, his thoughts clouded with confusion and unease. The Demon King observed him from a throne-like chair near the fire, a smirk playing at his lips. He had not taken a mere prisoner, he had taken a prize. Prince One bristled at the realization. He was no weakling to be toyed with, yet the weight of his situation pressed against him like an iron shackle. Days passed, and One remained within the castle walls, his fate uncertain. The Demon King, amused by his captive's defiance, often engaged him in conversation, though his words were laced with teasing threats. "You keep glaring at me like that, little prince. Careful or I might think you like me." "I'd rather kiss a toad," One snapped. The Demon King chuckled. "I can arrange that. But I assure you I'm a far better choice." One huffed, crossing his arms. Arrogance must be a demon's favorite pastime. One of many. The Demon King admitted, stretching lazily. But admiring beauty is another. His red eyes roamed over One with amusement. "And you, my dear prince, are quite the sight when you're angry." One turned away, trying to ignore the heat rising in his cheeks. One evening, the Demon King approached him with an offer. He might consider letting him go, but only if One agreed to be his bride for the night. One stiffened, his breath catching at the absurdity of the proposal. A human prince, the bride of a demon? The very notion was outrageous. "Excuse me?" One choked. "You heard me," the Demon King said smoothly, tilting One's chin with a clawed finger. "It's a fair trade, don't you think?" "I think you've lost your mind." The Demon King laughed, low and rich. "Then you should be grateful I still find you entertaining." One's pulse quickened. He had spent his life resisting the expectations placed upon him, yet this was something far beyond his control. The Demon King was powerful, relentless, and undeniably dangerous. Refusal might cost him more than just his freedom. The Demon King leaned in, his voice a mere whisper. "You can fight me all you want, but it won't change your fate." Prince One glared at him, determined not to show weakness. But deep inside, he knew escape was no longer an option. After 3 days of contemplation, Prince One finally made his decision. If playing along with the Demon King's ridiculous offer was the only way to gain his freedom, then so be it. He would endure this humiliation, just for one night. "Fine," Prince One muttered, folding his arms. "But don't get any ideas." The Demon King's lips curved into a wicked grin. "Oh, I have plenty of ideas." Before Prince One could argue, the Demon King clapped his hands, summoning a group of maids into the chamber. They were dressed in elegant dark robes, their gazes lowered in obedience. "Prepare him," the Demon King commanded. "Make him presentable." One's eyes widened in horror. "Wait, what does that mean?" The maids grabbed his arms and dragged him toward the bathing chamber. A grand, steaming bath awaited, scented with exotic oils and flower petals. They scrubbed him down with precision, not daring to question the Demon King's absurd order. One, however, was seething. "I can wash myself," he protested. The maids merely exchanged nervous glances and continued their work. No one dared disobey the Demon King's wishes. After an eternity of scrubbing, one was wrapped in silk and ushered toward the dressing chamber. His eyes widened in horror at the sight before him. A delicate red silk robe embroidered with golden phoenixes, elegant jewelries and intricate hair ornaments. It wasn't just a fine outfit, it was a bridal gown. No. One dug his heels into the ground. Absolutely not. The maids looked at each other helplessly. One hesitantly spoke. His Majesty insists. One gritted his teeth. Oh, he insists. Before he could finish his sentence, he was being dressed like a princess against his will. The luxurious fabrics draped over him, the jewelry fastened into place. When he finally caught sight of himself in the mirror, he nearly fainted. This was the worst humiliation of his life. Perfect. One of the maids said, stepping back. I look ridiculous. Prince Wen growled. But the maids were already ushering him toward the grand hall. He was led through the castle, his cheeks burning with rage. When he arrived at the throne room, the Demon King was waiting. Upon seeing Wen, the Demon King's eyes gleamed with delight. He leaned forward, resting his chin on his hand, a smirk playing on his lips. You look good. Shut up. Wen's voice was venomous. The Demon King chuckled, his eyes scanning Prince Wen's entire appearance with open amusement. I must say red suits you. You make a breathtaking bride. Prince Wen clenched his fists. When my father finds out about this, you'll pay dearly for humiliating me. The Demon King only laughed, reaching out to tuck a loose strand of hair behind Wen's ear. Oh, little prince, I do hope you stay angry. Makes this all the more fun. For once, Prince Wen had no retort. He stormed back to his chambers, his frustration boiling over. He had to escape. He had to find a way out of this castle before the Demon King took things even further. Weeks passed and Prince Wen remained in the castle. The Demon King had vanished without a word. When Prince Wen asked a guard where the Demon King had gone, the man answered. His Majesty left for business. Prince Wen scoffed, muttering under his breath. I hope he doesn't come back in one piece. The guard heard him but remained silent. The Demon King had left strict orders that no one was to be rude to Prince Wen. Days later the Demon King returned. When he visited Wen, the prince smirked. I hoped you'd never return. The Demon King laughed. I cannot die so easily. He stepped closer and Prince Wen's heart pounded. Then the Demon King pressed a kiss on Wen's forehead, leaving him stunned. A few days later, Prince Wen suddenly fell sick. His illness came without warning one evening as he sat by the grand window overlooking the Demon King's dark empire. A wave of dizziness swept over him. His limbs felt weak, his vision blurred, and an unbearable cold surged through his body. The moment he tried to stand, he felt dizzy and he collapsed onto the cold marble floor. When the Demon King heard the news, he stormed into the chamber, his eyes filled with so much worry. He knelt beside Prince Wen, touching his clammy forehead. After he felt Prince Wen's temperature, he quickly spoke under his breath. Call the healers immediately. Within minutes, the chamber filled with the Demon King's most skilled medical professionals. Demons with centuries of knowledge in dark magic and healing. But despite their efforts, none could find the cause of Prince Wen's sudden illness. Potions were brewed, spells were cast, incantations whispered, but nothing worked. The Demon King barely left Wen's side. He stayed in the chamber, watching over him, his normally unreadable face betraying hints of frustration and concern. Days passed in agony. Prince Wen drifted in and out of consciousness, feverish and weak. After some time the illness began to fade. It happened overnight like magic. His strength slowly returned, the fever broke and color returned to his body. On the day Prince Wen finally sat up without feeling like the world was spinning, the Demon King exhaled deeply, as if releasing a breath he had been holding for days. Without a word he scooped Wen onto his back. What are you doing? Wen protested, struggling weakly. You need fresh air. The Demon King's tone left no room for argument. Despite his initial resistance, Prince Wen allowed himself to be carried outside. The sight that met him took his breath away. The Demon King's gardens were nothing like the cold, ominous palace. They were stunning. The air smelled of fragrance, and for the first time in weeks, Prince Wen felt something close to peace. The Demon King walked slowly, carrying him effortlessly, allowing him to take in the beauty surrounding them. After a while, Prince Wen broke the silence. "Why are you still keeping me here?" His voice was calm, but there was an edge to it. "It's been a month." The Demon King said nothing. Prince Wen narrowed his eyes. "Are you in love with me?" This time, the Demon King stiffened slightly but remained silent. Wen smirked, sensing something in his reaction. "That's it, isn't it?" Still no answer. But then, after a long moment, the Demon King finally spoke, his voice quieter than usual. "Yes, you are right." Prince Wen blinked, taken aback. He hadn't expected an actual confession, let alone one so direct. A small smile played at his lips. "So that's why you've been keeping me hostage all this time?" The Demon King didn't respond immediately. He simply kept walking, carrying Prince Wen through the glowing garden, the air between them thick with unspoken words. The Demon King nodded and continued walking. The days passed slowly, and Prince Wen could hardly believe it when the Demon King finally allowed him to leave. It was not an abrupt decision but a gradual one, as if the Demon King was trying to savor every last moment he had left with him. Despite the strange bond that had formed between them, Prince Wen was eager to return home to see his people again, to breathe the air of his own land. On the day of his departure, the Demon King personally saw him off. The grand gates of the Demon Palace stood open for the first time since Prince Wen had arrived. A group of royal demon guards stood silently, watching the moment unfold. The air was heavy with unspoken words, yet neither Prince Wen nor the Demon King spoke right away. Just as Prince Wen was about to leave, the Demon King suddenly reached for Prince Wen's shoulder and whispered to him, "I will miss you." Prince Wen smiled but didn't say anything further. He took his horse and galloped away without looking back. The Demon King went back into his chambers and took off his robe, revealing a huge scar that had been inflicted on him from the rituals he did to save Prince Wen's life. He didn't tell anyone about it and kept the secret to himself. Every night he bore the excruciating pains alone and had sleepless nights. The journey back home was bittersweet. As the days passed, Prince Wen found himself constantly thinking about the Demon King and his quiet acts of devotion. The way they went from being enemies to what he could call friendship or maybe love. But just as he settled back into his life, trouble arose in the Demon Kingdom. Not long after Prince Wen's departure, the Demon King fell gravely ill. The once mighty ruler, feared by many, was now bedridden, his strength waning with each passing day. His advisors and generals gathered in urgent meetings, their faces grim with concern. "If this continues," one of the elder demons murmured, "our kingdom will fall into chaos. The king's power is weakening." "What could be the cause?" another asked. No one had an answer. The Demon King himself remained silent on the matter, though deep inside he already knew. The price for saving Prince Wen had been far greater than he had anticipated. But he did not regret it. Lying in his chamber, the Demon King closed his eyes, his mind drifting back to Prince Wen. And as his fever burned hotter, he wondered if Prince Wen would ever return. With no other option, the advisor set out on a journey to find Prince Wen and bring him back before it was too late. After a long and exhausting search, the advisor finally arrived at Prince Wen's palace. However, upon his arrival, the guards refused to let him in immediately. He pleaded for an audience with the prince, but for 2 whole days he was left waiting outside, growing weaker from exhaustion. On the 3rd day, Prince Wen finally received word that someone had been searching for him. "Your Highness," one of the guards informed him, bowing deeply. "There is a man who has been waiting for 2 days to see you. He claims to be an advisor from the Demon King's court." Prince Wen's expression hardened. He had spent weeks trying to forget everything about his captivity, and now someone from the Demon King's court had come looking for him? He hesitated for a moment before nodding. "Bring him in." Minutes later, the advisor entered, his robe slightly dusted from travel. He bowed deeply before speaking. "Prince Wen, I apologize for the sudden intrusion, but I come bearing grave news. The Demon King is gravely ill, and his condition worsens by the day. He has not risen from his bed since you left. I implore you to return with me." Prince Wen folded his arms, his expression unreadable. And why should I go back? I have responsibilities here. I cannot abandon my people just because your king is unwell. The advisor sighed. Your Highness, I understand your hesitation. But there is something you must know. He took a step closer, lowering his voice. The Demon King made a great sacrifice for you. The ritual he performed to save your life came at a cost. His own health. His body has been deteriorating ever since, and no healer has been able to cure him. He kept this a secret from you because he did not want you to feel indebted. But if his condition continues, he may not survive. Prince Wen's eyes widened slightly. Are you telling the truth? His mind raced. He had left the Demon King behind, believing that their connection had been nothing more than captivity. But now he was hearing that the man who had once held him hostage had willingly sacrificed his well-being just to save him? A strange feeling settled in Prince Wen's chest. The advisor knelt before him. Please, Your Highness. You are the only one who can help him. Prince Wen was silent for a long moment. His heart felt heavy, but in the end, he let out a quiet sigh. Fine. We leave at dawn. The advisor's face lit up with relief. Thank you, Your Highness. That night, Prince Wen lay awake in his chambers, staring at the ceiling. He had told himself he wanted nothing more to do with the Demon King. And yet here he was preparing to return to him. The next morning, as the sun began to rise, Prince Wen mounted his horse. The advisor rode beside him, leading the way back to the Demon King's palace. Though his mind was filled with uncertainty, there was one thing he knew for sure. He needed to see the Demon King again. Prince Wen stepped into the grand chamber where the Demon King lay. His once mighty presence dimmed by the sickness that had overtaken him. The moment their eyes met, the Demon King managed a weak smile, his eyes filled with a mixture of surprise and relief. You came back? The Demon King murmured, his voice hoarse yet laced with warmth. Prince Wen took a slow step forward, his gaze never leaving the Demon King's weary form. Why did you pay such a huge sacrifice to save me? He asked, his voice carrying both curiosity and a quiet sadness. The Demon King chuckled softly, though it was clear the act took some effort. Love is all about making sacrifices, he said. And I don't regret it. He paused, then slowly unfastened his robe, revealing a deep scar running across his chest. The wound burned with a faint, eerie glow, a painful reminder of the ritual he had endured to save Prince Wen's life. Prince Wen's breath hitched at the sight. He stepped forward instinctively, his fingers brushing over the scar as his heart clenched. You suffered this much for me? He whispered, his voice barely above a breath. The Demon King reached out, cupping Prince Wen's face with a gentleness that contradicted his usual intimidating aura. And I would do it again if it meant keeping you safe. Prince Wen swallowed hard before speaking again. Then let me stay by your side, he said firmly. I won't leave you alone in this. A slow, genuine smile spread across the Demon King's lips, and without hesitation he leaned in, pressing a soft kiss to Prince Wen's lips. The moment was tender, a silent promise sealed between them. Days turned into weeks, and with Prince Wen by his side, the Demon King gradually began to heal. His strength returned, and though the scar remained, the burning pain lessened with time. Yet, amidst their newfound happiness, both knew that Prince Wen's kingdom was still at stake. The longer he remained away, the more unstable things could become. Understanding this, the Demon King made a solemn vow. I will unite our kingdoms. He declared one evening as they stood in the castle gardens, the moon casting a silver glow over them. No more war, no more hostility. We will create a world where both humans and demons live in harmony. Prince Wen stared at him, admiration glistening in his eyes. You do that? For you, the Demon King said. I'll do anything. Months passed, and true to his word, the Demon King worked tirelessly to mend the rift between their worlds. Through alliances, negotiations, and mutual trust, the kingdoms finally reached an era of peace. The battles ceased, and for the first time in history humans and demons coexisted without fear. Through it all, Prince Wen remained at the Demon King's side as steadfast and loyal as ever. The Demon King, now fully healed, gazed at him one evening under the vast starlit sky. Prince Wen, he murmured, pulling him close. I love you. Princewan smiled, his heart swelling with warmth. And I love you too. As the two stood together, their hands intertwined, they knew that no matter what challenges the future held, they would face them together. Please like, comment and subscribe to my channel for more interesting BL stories. Thanks for watching.